the Washington Nationals. The Boston Red Sox took it to them, but they have decided to go ahead and have a fire sale. And by that, AJ, I mean they're firing everybody. It looks like Mike Rizzo is out. It looks like Davey Martinez, their manager, is out. What do you think about the situation going on with Washington?
Weird timing. They do have the first pick on Sunday in the draft too, which is an interesting time to fire your general manager. Listen, Dave Martinez, it's not his fault. He won a World Series not long ago, 2019. Mike Rizzo's been there a long time. This to me goes on the owners. They didn't spend money. They didn't make the necessary moves in a tough NL East with the Mets, the Braves, the Phillies. They spend money, and guess what they have? They have really good teams. And the Nats, yes, they're competing with the Braves because the Braves are banged up like no team other than the Dodgers that we've probably ever seen. But yeah, to me, this is like Lerner fired Rizzo and Martinez. But I mean, sometimes you got to look in the mirror and say, man, we got to spend some money because they got some good players. James Wood, CJ Abrams. I mean, they got some good young players that are there and ready to do it. And they got to get supplemental pieces around them. If you don't do that, you get in a constant cycle of, oh, our players like Mackenzie Gore, they're good. Oh, but we're not good enough, so we got to trade them, and then we got to start over. But no, spend some money like you did in 2019. Bring in, I'm not saying you bring in Scherzer and Corbin and all those other guys, but you got to bring in somebody to supplement this roster, and they didn't do that.
AJ, it seems like ownership needed to decide on options for both Martinez and Rizzo for 2026. But the timing, to AJ's point, is peculiar in terms of it's almost never that a general manager gets fired before the deadline or oftentimes before the end of the season. And when I think of Mike Rizzo, I think of the Nationals. I mean, the Lerners have been loyal to Rizzo, whether it's been to a fault or not, incredibly loyal. What do you think about the timing of this whole thing?
Yeah, I think it's terrible. I think it's terrible because, one, they've done all their work for the draft. I think the draft is probably just plug and play. You really can't screw up the draft if you have the number one pick unless, hey, you know what? We'd like to go with a super low pick or super low money pick. Let's try to lowball somebody with our first pick. You know, maybe the ownership wants to do something like that. I doubt it because the last group, the last winning team was built on that. To me, I just don't see why, except for the contract needed to be decided, why you would make the decision now, which a team that's rebuilding needs to have all their ducks in a row right now. They don't need to have people looking over their shoulder like, well, I'm not even going to be here, so why would I care? There's a lot of things with the Nats that I don't get. They won the World Series, and it was like, that's fine. We're glad we did it. Like Nats fans, that's when Nats fans came aboard. Like they were like, yeah, they're wearing their Nats hats, Natitude all over the place. And then they just were like, oh, that's fine. That's all we were really building that whole team for was one world championship. And they got it. And it just feels like since then, their record shows it too. Since then, they just really don't care about putting a winning product consistently out on the field.
Is the timing a bit odd to you? Did you see this coming?
You know, it's odd because everybody will point to the draft that's upcoming and they have won the most important pick that they've had in a long, long time. And Mike Rizzo obviously made his name as a scout. He built this franchise into a winner behind 2 1-1s in Steven Strasburg and Bryce Harper more than a decade ago. So, yeah, that timing is weird. But I think you make this kind of move, and it's really a seismic move given that the general manager had been here since 2006 and been in that chair since 2009, and Dave Martinez, the manager, took over in 2018. You make it not just because of one draft or one small situation. Optically, you want to do it at a time when the big league club isn't playing well, and they just got, they got swept by the Red Sox at home in 3 really uncompetitive games. That timing feels right optically. And also, though, I mean, you don't make this change in a flippant way. You do it because it's not just that the big league club has underperformed this year, but really you have a draft and development process that has not produced impact players for more than a decade. Their last truly impactful player in the big leagues that they drafted was Anthony Rendon, who went 6th in the 2011 draft. That's a long, long time ago. They obviously get credit for signing Juan Soto as an amateur free agent for sure, but it's been too many misses and not enough hits. And that's left them with a big league club that really their best players are all the players that they got in the Juan Soto trade in 2022, a lot of misses around that. So timing weird because of the draft, but overall, it's a big, big move for an organization that needed to make a big, big move.
Is this why the ownership was reticent to bring any free agents in? We felt like this was a year that it was time to strike because we looked at past blueprint, bringing Jason Worth in. You have a CJ Abrams, you have a Mackenzie Gore, you have James Wood, those guys that, okay, these are going to be the core. Time to bring somebody like a Pete Alonso in. Do you feel like this was just coming because ownership was like, well, we're not going to push in with these guys. We're going to go with the next guys?
Well, I mean, that's the big question. Are they going to go with the next guys? Are they going to push in? I mean, I think it would be a disservice to Mike Rizzo to wait and then say, oh, now we're providing resources that you didn't have, that you weren't allowed to do. And you're right about the first build. Like, they signed Jason Worth to a 7-year deal a year before they were really ready to win, because at that point they could say, hey, big league free agent who won a World Series elsewhere, here's what we have, here's where we're going, here's where you fit, and we're going to follow through on some promises after that. At this point, where they have Wood, where they have Gore, where they have Abrams, they have not gone in on any multi-year free agent deals other than a 2-year kind of small deal for Trevor Williams that isn't going to impact anyway. So they have now a clubhouse that has, yes, good young pieces, but it doesn't have veterans who are going to be there and are invested in the process going forward. That's on ownership. They have prevented that from happening. And that's why I think the decision that's upcoming is a two-way interview. It's, yes, the Lerner family saying to any candidate, what would you bring to the table? What's your vision? But those candidates have to look across the table and ask ownership, if I take this job, what resources are you going to provide me? And that's not just in major league payroll. That's in R&D, that's in analysis, that's in scouting, that's in player development, that's in technology. They are not up to par with the major league standards in any of those regards. Anybody who takes this job would want to ask those questions.
Why? Why though? Why are the Lerners not spending money? They used to in the past. They used to have a direct hotline to Scott Boras. Why did they stop? Is it because they want to sell the team? They tried and they took them off the market. What's the reason? Because I cannot look at Mike Rizzo. Yes, you can blame draft picks and you can blame this, but they made good trades. And Davey Martinez, he didn't change the way he managed. So I have to look at the Lerners and say, why did you stop spending for no reason? Because in the past you've done it. You saw the fruits. You get Scherzer, you get Corbin, you get these guys, and you go out and you win a World Series, and then you just turn the faucet off. Why?
So it's a really complex question, AJ, and I don't know that anybody knows the full answer, but we'll touch on a couple points. Like, did they get scared by the Steven Strasburg contract? He opted out of his deal after he became the World Series MVP in 2019. Scott Boras went right to work with Ted Lerner, the late patriarch of the family, and they came to a 7-year, $245 million deal that obviously was disastrous. I think Strasburg pitched 15 2/3 innings on that deal. He's retired now. They're still paying him. That really hurt. Secondly, the pandemic, which affected everybody, really, really took a hit on the Lerners' real estate development. They're real estate people. They're commercial real estate people. And what was not coming back after the pandemic, office space, all that kind of stuff, malls, we can't quantify what kind of impact that had on their spending on their second business, which is the baseball team. But you can't tell me that there's not some sort of relationship there. And then you had a fan base that they could not take advantage of the momentum from a World Series championship because the 2020 season was held without fans. That Nationals team, in which they got the band back together, didn't make the playoffs. And the next 2 summers were sell Scherzer and Trey Turner at the deadline in 2021, sell Soto at the deadline and lose 107 games in 2022. That had a real impact on the fan base. I see it as a chicken and egg thing. They want more people to come through the turnstiles so they can then turn it into payroll. I would say you need to put some money into payroll so that more people come through the turnstiles and you can really sink it into the team.
Barry, how much does the on again, off again potential sale of the team, how much do you think all of that has impacted perhaps the lack of putting, good players on the field? In turn, what you were saying, chicken and egg, getting fans into the stands. I mean, maybe there's just a lot of uncertainty. How much does that play a role?
Yeah, it has felt like since they announced their intention to sell, which would have been, I'm losing track of years here, beginning of 2023, I believe, that they've had their foot kind of half in the water, like they're just putting their toe in the water. Now, Mark Lerner sat down with me in spring training this year and said, we expect to own this thing for the foreseeable future, and we're excited about it. But I've always said, like, there has to be an investment of not just finances, but there has to be an investment of emotions and of time. And I don't know, in a group where the patriarch, the guiding light, is no longer around, if that next generation, which is Mark and his two sisters and his two brother-in-laws, can get on the same page enough to where they're all kind of pointed in the same direction, that they really are excited to have the team. They don't feel like it's a burden. They feel like it should be a plus for the community. Like, they haven't been able, if that's the way they feel, they haven't been able to articulate that, to the public very clearly.
Kratz, we talk about HelloFresh a lot, but in the same fam is another option for you if you're looking to go on your little wellness journey, or you're very picky in terms of what you're looking for ingredients wise. You can go Green Chef this summer.
And I can heat and eat, because this summer I've got like 3 days where I'm not doing anything. And I'm sure those are going to get scheduled with something. Let's give me something super quick that I can heat up. The whole family's eating healthy and they're full.
Menus change weekly, 80-plus dietitian-approved weekly meal options. Green Chef makes it easy to find those meals to fit your lifestyle, so go check it out. FT fam, there is an exclusive offer. Make this summer your healthiest yet with Green Chef. Head to greenchef.com/50territory and use code 50territory to get 50% off your first month, then 20% off for 2 months with free shipping. That's code 50territory at greenchef.com/50territory.
Any manager that wins a World Series is a successful managerial campaign. Is Mike Rizzo's tenure with the Nationals going to be seen as successful because he won one championship, or with all the money that was spent, are fans going to look at it as it was okay?
Oh, I think it was good. I mean, from 2012 to 2019, only the Dodgers won more regular season games than the Washington Nationals. That's pretty heady company right there, given the resources in LA. They won 4 division titles in that time. They won the wild card that in 2019 that led to the World Series championship. And then there were a litany of reasons why things got torn down. And as AJ said, this guy made a lot of really good trades over the years. I can criticize the development over the last decade, like the drafting hasn't gone well, but find a Mike Rizzo trade that he lost. It's pretty hard to do. And that includes the Soto deal, which is having a huge impact on the major league franchise right now. All 3 of Gore, Wood, and Abrams have been all-stars very early in their careers now, with Gore and Wood making the team this year. And you still don't know what you're going to get from Robert Hassel and Harlan Susana, a pitcher who's lower down in the minors. So I think in 10 years, if they're going to have a reunion of that World Series championship, Mike Rizzo will be back at Nationals Park with a cigar in his mouth, waving his hat to the crowd, and they'll be thanking him for it.
All right, Barry, while we have you, I have to ask you, what happened to Dylan Cruz? I know he's injured, but before that, he couldn't hit. What happened? This guy hit everywhere he's been. What
it's interesting. I think, first of all, take the hitting aside, one thing that's impressive about this guy who kind of walks off the bus and carries himself as a major leaguer, he just kind of oozes major leaguer, is that those at-bats he did not take to the field, and that's a really good sign for his future, because he played wherever you put him in center or in right, he played a really good outfield. I'd say, AJ, that yes, he's hit everywhere he's been. I kind of view him as more of a high floor than a high ceiling guy. He doesn't have James Woods' kind of natural athletic ability. I expect that when he gets back from this oblique, he'll be right back out there, and we'll see what the second half yields for him. But you're right. He was disappointing offensively, not quite as much power. Definitely got in some streaks where he was swinging at any junk that was out of the zone and was really an easy out from time to time. He's got to get back in the right headspace and become Dylan Cruz, because Dylan Cruz is pretty hitterish.
Barry, before we let you go, we have a fan question here regarding the Washington Nationals. Mike G wants to know, since this leadership change has been happening right now with the firing of Mike Rizzo and Davey Martinez, do you think the Nationals are more apt to trade a Mackenzie Gore now? I mean, does he become more of a candidate at the deadline now because of the change?
It's a really interesting question, and Mike DiBartolo, Mike Rizzo's longtime assistant GM, who started here as an intern, 13 or 14 years ago, he's running the show right now. And it's a very interesting question for him, because at 4+ years of service time, that's exactly the amount of service time at which they traded Juan Soto, who, as a Scott Boras client, they knew was very unlikely to sign an extension. Mackenzie Gore, Scott Boras client, would he sign an extension? Even if he won't, if you hold on to him now, there's a really good argument that holding on to him means you should get a commitment from ownership that, look, if we have this guy still, we need to build around him. He's only here guaranteed for 2026 and 2027. What are we doing with our payroll? Or are we just going to, play 2 more irrelevant big league seasons and let this guy walk? Really, really interesting question for Mike DiBartolo, and I think for ownership as well.
Hey, everybody. Be sure to like and subscribe for more content.
We're back here every weekday, all year long, so do not miss an episode.
The videos are coming in all day. Here's another video you might enjoy.
Baseball the way it should be covered.